Honourable Minister of Human Resources and Skills Development.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to have the opportunity to speak to this very important bill, C-31, Eliminating Entitlements for Prisoners Act. Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government is committed to ensuring fairness for hard-working taxpayers, and we will continue to put victims and taxpayers first, ahead of criminals. Our government believes that Canadians who work hard, who contribute to the system, and play by the rules deserve benefits such as old age security. And it's wrong and obviously unfair that prisoners who broke the law should receive these same benefits. Bill C-31 will ensure that mass murderers like Clifford Olson do not receive benefits while they're in jail. This mass murderer is receiving these government benefits even though he actually admitted to brutally murdering 11 children, forever altering the lives of their families and traumatizing the communities in which he committed these dreadful, dreadful crimes. In a few short years, Paul Bernardo is supposed to receive the same benefits. So is Robert Pickton. This is offensive and outrageous to our Prime Minister, to me, to our government, and to Canadians right across the country. As soon as this shocking practice was discovered, the Prime Minister asked me to take action quickly to put a stop to incarcerated criminals receiving old age security and guaranteed income supplement benefits. And that's exactly what we're doing today, Mr. Speaker. We're doing exactly what Canadians want. Canadians know that when our Conservative government makes a commitment, we follow through. And they know that unlike the tax and spend opposition, we'll use their hard-earned tax dollars fairly, responsibly, and prudently. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I want to explain exactly what this legislation aims to do. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of the OAS program is to help seniors, many who live on a fixed income, meet their immediate basic needs, and maintain a minimum standard of living in retirement. This is in recognition of the contributions seniors have made to Canadian society, the economy, and to their communities.
However, an inmate's needs, such as food and shelter, are already met and paid for by hard-working Canadian taxpayers. Canadians accept these costs because they want to make sure criminals stay off their streets and stay in jail where they belong.
Okay with are benefits meant for law-abiding, hard-working seniors going to incarcerated prisoners. Since an inmate's basic needs are already paid for by public funds, Canadian taxpayers should not be paying for income support through OAS benefits. It's grossly unfair to make law-abiding Canadian taxpayers pay for incarcerated criminals twice. In short, Mr. Speaker, whether someone is in jail for 2 years or 2 months or 20 years, the fact is that taxpayers are already footing the bill for their room and board, so the criminals should not be receiving old age security benefits intended to help low-income seniors pay for their basic expenses. Accordingly, once passed, this bill would terminate old age security benefits for prisoners sentenced to more than 2 years in a federal penitentiary. The federal government would then work with provinces and territories to sign information sharing agreements to proceed with the termination of these benefits for incarcerated criminals serving 90 days or more in a provincial or territorial institution. I was very pleased that the government of British Columbia was the first to announce its support for our legislation and its willingness to work with us if and when this bill becomes law. I've written to all of the provinces and territories to gauge their support, and I hope to hear from all of them. And what's more, I really hope that they all agree to move forward with this on this very important initiative. Mr. Speaker, this bill will affect approximately 400 federal inmates and about 600 provincial and territorial inmates each year. In total, implementing this bill will result in a saving to Canadian taxpayers of $2 million annually once the change is made federally. The savings will increase another $8 to $10 million per year if every province and every territory signs on. I'd like to point out that this bill would put the OAS Act in line with other federal and provincial, as well as international practices. For example, the Working Income Tax Benefit and the Employment Insurance Program both cease payments of benefits when an individual is incarcerated. In addition, most of the provinces and territories, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and the Northwest Territories already do not make social assistance available to inmates, while the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States, among others, all suspend the payment of pensions to prisoners as well. Mr. Speaker, we've been very careful to ensure that the innocent spouses and common law partners do not suffer as a result of the actions of their criminal spouse. They will not lose their individual entitlement to the guaranteed income supplement and the allowances as a result of these proposed amendments. They will still receive benefits, but based on their individual income rather than the combined income of the couple. In summary, Bill C-31 puts an end to the practice of prisoners receiving taxpayer-funded old age security benefits. Our Conservative government believes that this is the fair thing to do, and we believe it's the right thing to do.
Hear, hear.
But Mr. Speaker, what matters more than what you or I think, or anyone across the aisle thinks, is what hard-working Canadians across the country think. Let me tell you, the support for this legislation has been overwhelming. Victims of Clifford Olson and the organizations that support them have praised this bill. One of the people by whom I was most touched was Sharon Rosenfeld. She is the president of Victims of Violence, and she is also the mother of one of Olson's victims. And her life was forever altered by his heinous crimes. Now, when this bill was introduced, here's what Ms. Rosenfeld said, and I quote, "It's great to see that this government is putting victims and taxpayers first ahead of criminals. The suspension of OAS benefits to inmates does just that. I commend the Prime Minister and the Minister for taking leadership on this important issue and ending entitlements for convicted criminals." End quote. Ray King is the father of another victim of Clifford Olson. When he learned that the government introduced this bill, he stated, and I quote, "It's the best news I've heard in a long time. I'm quite pleased the government has actually done something." End quote. David Toner, president of the Families Against Crime and Trauma, also praised this bill, saying, and I quote, "We are thrilled that the Prime Minister and the Minister have taken leadership and are putting victims ahead of entitlements of prisoners. I commend the Harper government for introducing this legislation." End quote. Mr. Speaker, it's not just the families of victims that support this bill. Law enforcement has also been very supportive. I've heard from police officers across the country who believe that this bill is the fair and the right thing to do. As an example, Vancouver Police Chief Jim Chu applauded the bill and said this, quote, "It would be my hope that the innocent victims will no longer feel further victimized by watching their attackers receive old age pensions during their forced retirement from their careers of crime. I'm sure this evolutionary change in legislation will be greeted warmly by the many victims of these criminals."